Who is first up tonight? Let's quickly see here.
Right, so the first one is Galmavar, but he is not here, and his question will be presented by me instead.
Okay, what's the question?
If we are to get a new class in like expansion, what would you honestly think it would and should be?
A new class.
Yes.
Whew. It's a hard question because honestly, the class that I have always wanted in World of Warcraft is Tinker. I've always wanted a Tinkerer because, and I know this is not necessarily the most fun thing for people, and I realize not like most people don't really care for a Tinker, but if you think about the freedom that you have in designing and developing a Tinker, a class that does all of its damage through its machinations and none of its damage actually comes from it itself, very much appeals to me. The ability to build turrets and things like that, I think could be really good. And for that to work, I realize that engineer plays very much into that, and you could absolutely build some tie-ins to engineering there. But overall, I love the idea of, and the fantasy behind this would absolutely be that engineers, tired of Azeroth constantly being under threat, started to take up arms. So instead of just building things that help them get around and help them glide, they started to build actual weapons, right? So suddenly you have this profession that if you choose, you could turn into an actual thing. And you could also do something there where people who are already engineers at the launch of the next expansion, they start maybe at level 20 or level 30 if they switch to a Tinker class, right? So they can actually turn themselves from say Mage Engineer to Tinker because they have engineering, it is maxed out. So it could be a cool little tie-in, it could be something that's really fun for a lot of people. So Tinkerer would be one. The other one that I could see Blizzard adding is Shadow Hunters. Although I do think once we get... So here's the problem that I have with things like Necromancer, things like Shadow Hunters. These would fall into the category of something we spoke about during the Livecraft episodes for patrons this week, which is more specs for different classes, right? So you could do extra specs on every single one of the classes, and this is where Shadow Hunters would become a thing. The question is, do you add Shadow Hunters to Hunter? Do you add Ranger to Hunter and you put Shadow Hunters somewhere else? Shadow Hunters could also work as a rogue, one of the rogue sort of range specs for a rogue. So these are things that could all be added into the game, but this could be a much bigger ask because in one, you're just creating a single class. In another, you are creating, what is it now? 12, 13 new specs for every single class in the game, which might be a really tall order as far as I'm concerned. But overall, if I'm going to give you my most honest answer, I don't actually want any new classes being added to the game. The last time a new class was added to the game, it ended up stripping my class, Warlocks, of one of their most iconic abilities. And it ended up screwing that class in so many ways. The class ended up being reworked to a place where it basically has animated dots and nothing else. Anyone that tells me that, demonology plays so incredibly well is a fucking moron. You have dots that run around. That's literally the only difference between a demonology warlock and an affliction warlock, and one of your dots isn't instacast. That's effectively literally the only difference between demonology and affliction. Affliction is sort of the better demonology warlock, if all things being equal, right? So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I think any new class that you add to World of Warcraft will end up gutting some other class. And no one wants to see that. I definitely don't. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and learn that warriors have lost like iconic abilities because Blizzard have figured out how to make a gladiator spec or some shit like that. Or a gladiator class. I think all of that effort can be put into revamping the classes instead. So what I would much rather like to see, instead of a new class being added, is making the base classes more fun. Rather than relying on borrowed power to actually give players some kind of fun aspect to their class, how about you just make the classes fun instead? And that, I think, is going to be more than enough work, to the point where adding another class might not even be feasible at that point. So yeah, that would be my hope, I suppose, if it was up to me. I know everyone sort of has their own opinions, and that's fine. I would rather see the classes be better. For a long time now, literally since Legion, I have hated the way that classes play in World of Warcraft. They're dumbed down, they have very little depth to them. You at most have 4 buttons that you're going to press at any given point in time, and that is going to be your rotation. It doesn't even matter, like, there is no real rotation anymore to classes. It's basically hit whatever fucking button lights up, which is really boring. And since playing Final Fantasy, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but since playing Final Fantasy 14, I can tell you the one thing that I'm missing in World of Warcraft is the olden days, where my Warlock had a very specific rotation. My Warrior had a very specific rotation. My Paladin had a very specific rotation, and it was fun, because mastering that rotation and then learning how to master the rotation whilst moving and dodging things is what creates the skill. If all I have to do is hit the next button that lights up, that's not necessarily as much fun for someone like myself, because, well, I don't want every single class to be a fucking boulder spender. Prove me wrong. Name the class in World of Warcraft that isn't currently a fucking boulder spender. And when I say name the class, I'm very specific here. You may have one spec in a class that doesn't end up being boulder spender, but Warlocks, all of them boulder spender. Shamans, all of them boulder spender. Mages, boulder spender. Warrior, boulder spender. Used to be that the only one that really was boulder spender was Warrior. Now everything is a boulder spender. It's annoying. Why? Why this? Why? Why must almost like 70% of all classes or all specs, why should 70% of all specs be boulder spender? It's boring fucking design. I want classes that is fundamentally different, and it just so happens that the classes that I currently, like, last time I played WoW, kind of enjoyed were the classes that wasn't boulder spender. You know, like, I kind of enjoyed the Fire Mage because it didn't have this weird boulder spender thing. It was more proc based, which Fire Mage usually always was, and that was kind of fun because that played into the fantasy of it. The thing that I hated about my Affliction Warlock is the fact that it was never supposed to be boulder spender. Affliction Warlock is about dots, controlling your dots, refreshing your dots at the right time, slowly but surely burning and wearing the target down. And now suddenly I have this weird boulder spender mechanic that does big boom booms as an Affliction. It's like, that's not, what the fuck? This is not the fantasy that I want to buy into. I don't want to play this way. So yeah, I would much rather Blizzard spend some time making the classes better rather than like this stupid shit where everything is boulder spender, or if it's not boulder spender, it's wait for the buttons to light up. There's more and better ways of actually making classes. This cannot be the only way. No one can tell me this is the best way, because what the fuck, right? So yeah, I hope that answers the question in a very long-winded way. That's my answer, Andy.